Hello there guys, you're listening to Ebird Online and I'm back with another video. And guys, today I've got something special for you again. Liz has done a bombshell exclusive interview on who else? Walking, talking, trigger warning, Big Ed. And I'm going to link the video to the actual full interview in information below. And she's spilling all the tea on Big Ed. Thank you very much to my subscriber Renee Antoine. It was Renee to the rescue because I had no idea this interview had taken place. But guys, I just could not believe the revelations that were uncovered. And so in this shocking interview with Liz, she's given us all the background information as to how she and Ed really met, how she came to be on the show, and also more examples of Ed's awful narcissistic behaviour. And if you didn't like Big Ed before, you're gonna freaking hate him now. That's okay guys, I'm happy to help. So Liz drops all the background information on the casting process for Big Ed in this season. And she also opens up about his extremely narcissistic behaviour. So I'm going to go over all the main bombshells that Liz dropped during this interview in just a moment. Right before I begin, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you to everyone who's pressed the big red button thus far. I'm very appreciative. If you've yet to do so, please don't hesitate. And also don't forget to smash the like button if you enjoy this video. And if you dislike Big Ed like I do, I've got a feeling you will. Right, so without further ado, I give you Big Ed, Liz, and a whole slew of shocking claims. So this interview was undertaken by none other than 90 Day Fiance alumni John Walters. Remember John from Rachel and John? Guys, I actually really like John. I think he's hilariously funny, and he drops a couple of really funny one-liners in this interview, which I'll bring you. And so let's get down to the interview. And so according to Liz, she wanted to do this interview so she could get her side of the story out. And to start off with, I thought, was there anything in particular that stopped you whilst you had 8 weeks on the TV? But then she clarified one really important point. And that was that it was mainly Ed's show with Ed's friends and they were following Ed's life. And she said, I was just like a supporting character. So you didn't see anything about me or my life. You only saw my life as it pertained to Big Ed. And I thought this is true. In essence, every time they had an argument, if you think about it, Ed would talk to the camera, just him, but you never really got just Liz on her own with the cameras. You always got Liz with production at Ed's house or when Ed was in the vicinity. So Ed got all the one-on-ones with the viewer and was able to push his own narrative. And that narrative was a narrative of lies, mischaracterizations and half-truths, but we'll get onto that later. So bombshell number one was that Liz was Ed's pretty much final choice to be his girlfriend for this season. So Liz says she hated Ed when she first met him, and although probably not nearly as much as she does now, she found him obnoxious and very rude as a patron. So obviously, as we know, he went into her restaurant and that's how they met. But when he first went in, he was clicking his fingers, he was ordering her around, and she said every single time he came in, she actively didn't want to serve on his section, so she didn't have to have any contact with him. But guys, according to Liz, he asked every single server at that restaurant and Liz was the last person to be asked. What? That's right, he just wanted somebody to go on the show with him. And he went through the entire restaurant asking all the servers. And one by one, all of the girls said, I'm sorry, I have a boyfriend. I don't think so. I don't like the TV. And, you gotta be kidding. Are you joking? Babe, you've got to be taking the piss. But to a woman, they all said the same thing, no. But as if that wasn't enough, he was also having outside dates and he kept updating Liz and telling her, I got ghosted, I got dumped, and other such believable tales. And so bombshell number two was that he had to bring in his best friend to absolutely convince Liz to be on the show with him. Guys, I didn't even know Teddy could talk, but it doesn't surprise me. Seems like a really intelligent dog. So as we've just said, she was the last resort, and finally she went to a barbecue at his house, and he kept asking her and she kept saying, no, I don't want to do it. And then he got his best friend to literally beg him and say, he really needs this, it's really important to him, please just go and say 2 dates and then you can break up and it will be absolutely fine, please do this one favour. And so in the end, according to Liz, she said yes. But how did these guys get together? Well, she said that after a couple of months of them dating, she actually fell in love with him and that's how they became a couple. Guys, I don't know what you think to this. I actually believe this story because I could almost see when they first started seeing each other, I could see that she wasn't really into him at all. She kept recoiling from him, When he tried to kiss her, it was a strong no. But I sensed a change when they went to the wedding, and Ed did his usual successful trick and plied her with drink. And that's where I sensed a change in the relationship. But what this also means is the whole scene of him saying, "Oh my God, I'm so nervous to ask her out. I wonder if she's going to say yes," was obviously all faked. And that doesn't surprise me one iota, because in my mind there was no way that he would have asked her on camera unless he knew she was going to say yes. But much more interestingly is the fact that no wonder he ended up treating her so badly, for Ed considered in Liz he'd got the booby prize. So we were all led to believe that Liz was his ideal and he'd really kind of punched for the stars with Liz. He hadn't. Liz was his last option, and he'd asked every other server first. Food for thought. But message to Liz, what you get at the start is what you get at the end as well. If Ed was rude and obnoxious when you first met him, you have to realise he's always going to be that way because he's a rude and obnoxious little man. The next bombshell is that the conversation that she had with Ed, when Ed was so rude to her, the phone call that we all heard, was not the only time he did that. He did that every single time they argued. And that, according to Liz, was his modus operandi. But she also tells us she made a secret video of him being equally as rude. And she claimed in this interview, "I'd never ever release it." Then why take it, Liz? You've taken it as an insurance policy and as a way of saying to Ed, beware Ed, there's more where that came from. People don't secretly take videos of other people unless they're planning at some point to either bribe you with it or release it. I say, Liz, release. And in addition to this, Liz also claims she used to have to lock herself in her bedroom to keep away from Ed because he was so obnoxious and threatening when they argued. But the next bombshell I think is the worst of all. And this is the fact that she showed Ed a photo of her when she was 16 and she was almost wearing lingerie. She said she was at a rave and she's wearing really short clothes and it was kind of like a pink rave outfit, and it was taken by her ex-husband. And when Ed saw the photo, Ed said, "Oh, I want a copy of it." And she said, "Well, no, I'm not happy with you doing that." And he argued with her and shouted and berated her because she refused to give him the photo. Who wants a photo of a 16-year-old girl? Guys, it's a rhetorical question. Don't actually answer. To me, that's absolutely crazy, and it absolutely goes to show Ed's real motivations and what Ed is actually like. Not just the fact that he wanted a photo of a 16-year-old, but the fact that when she said no, as is her right, he thought he could argue her into submission. And he said to her, "I'm your boyfriend. Yes, you're my boyfriend now, at the age of 28, not when I was 16. Why would you want that photo?" And John, the interviewer, made a really funny point, and he was no doubt speaking of Ed's proclivity for young girls and sugar babies when he was in LA. And he said, "There's been a global pandemic and all Ed wants to do is breathe on little girls." I really like John. He's got away with words, you got to admit. And the final bombshell is a revisiting of a previous bombshell that we've all seen before. So remember the time when he was in the hotel room with Rose and he gave her a razor and said, "Ew, your legs are disgusting, you have to shave your legs." And we all thought, Ed, something in the room's disgusting and it ain't Rose's legs. Well, he went one further with Liz. Ed actually demanded that she shave her bikini area because he prefers no hair. Oh my God, and Liz said that's not my flex and she refused. And she said they then had 3 massive arguments over how she was groomed. And again, he thought it was his right to say how she should be groomed and how she should be down there for Ed. And when she kept on refusing and said no, he said, "Do you know how many girls would do this for me?" Yeah, none, Ed, because you went through every single girl at my workplace and they all told you to pee off to just a date. So do you think there's anyone that would do that for you? No. But in the end, Liz acquiesced and she did as he asked. So yet again, Ed lied to us. He pretended his lack of experience with women had led him to say to Rose, "Shave your legs." And remember when he and Liz were at the wedding in the hotel, he said, "If there's something I don't like about Liz in terms of grooming, I probably wouldn't say anything." Well, you did, Ed. Stop lying. You did, and you went one further this time. Guys, I really can't with Ed. I really can't. But Ed's list of demands didn't end there. And Liz said that she also had to wear suspenders for him, wear a belly button ring, and also he demanded she dye her hair from blonde to dark brown. Guys, I knew something was weird about this. I swear to God, I had it in a video and I deleted it because I thought, well, I'm reaching here. I've got no evidence. But remember, between episodes 2 and 3, after their first couple of dates, she was doing production interviews and her hair was already very dark. And I thought she looked so much better as a blonde. I wonder what prompted her to do that. And intrinsically, I knew it had something to do with Big Ed. And it crossed my mind yet again when he was asking her not to wear makeup to the wedding. What? And I absolutely thought that's why her hair is suddenly dark. Dark hair does not pop and stand out as much as blonde. She also said a few other things. She said Ed texted girls and then deleted the text right in front of her. She also said he forced her to give him her passcode to her phone, although she didn't have his. And as for the question of her going out with Ed in the first instance, she claims that she never saw anything of Ed's season with Rose until after she'd finished filming. And so she knew exactly what he was like by the tell-all, but she watched it afterwards. Do I believe this? I'm not sure, because I do remember her at one point referencing Ed's relationship with Rose, so if you didn't see anything of it, how did you know? And also, I'm not really sure that anybody would film a whole TV show with somebody without looking at what they were like previously. She must have seen that Ed's comments are turned off on all his social media. Why is that? Because he's not the most popular chap. So that statement posed more questions than it solved. So for all of those out there who are Big Ed fans, let's call them knobs. So for all the knobs out there who were in my comments last week saying, you're picking on Big Ed, we've only heard one side of the story, and this phone call could be a one-off. It doesn't sound as if it was. And if Ed decides to claim it was, it sounds as if there's more where that came from. I think she's got a few phone calls of Ed's, and she's got at least one video. So guys, what do you make to all these revelations? As far as I'm concerned, these revelations are somewhere in between an aggravating circumstance and a mitigating factor for grievous bodily harm. And I think the interviewer John agrees with me. He finished the interview by saying, my final thoughts on Ed are, fuck you, Ed. I second that. So guys, let me know what you think in comments down below. In my mind, Ed becomes more and more despicable the more I learn of him. And the worst thing is now, according to Liz, Ed's got his own spin-off show. So there's much more of Ed to come. Personally, I think he shouldn't be allowed to have a spin-off show for the following reasons. 1, he's a mean little narcissist. 2, you're putting women in harm's way. He's got allegations against him. You only need to look over YouTube to find those. And 3, none of what he says is actually true. So him getting together with Liz, we were all wondering, does Liz really fancy Ed? Wonder no more, it was all the opposite way round. Does Ed really fancy Liz? And it seems that it was a resounding, no, not really, she's 42nd on the list. So please put your comments down below, and I'll be back very soon with another video. Very quickly, please don't forget to like and subscribe and all of that good stuff, it's fun over here. And I've got, as I keep promising, my comments on Big Ed video coming up very soon. And we'll also be looking at what Mike and Natalie are doing this week. Thank you guys so much for listening. You've been listening to Ebird Online, and I bid you good day.